The distress beacon had been pulsing for 17 cycles now, and nobody wanted to go near it. I watched the holographic display flicker in the center of the command deck, showing that damned signal blinking like a dying star. 17 cycles. That was how long the Krell Hunter ship had been broadcasting its automated emergency call from high orbit above Terminus 4. And, in all that time, not a single life sign had registered aboard. "Pull up the last transmission again," I told my communications officer, a nervous Velkari named Prin, who kept twitching his sensory stalks every time he looked at the data. "Captain Torvin, we have reviewed this 43 times already," Prin said, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into standard Galactic common. "The result does not change." "I did not ask for your opinion. I asked for the transmission." Prin's scales rippled with anxiety, but he complied. The audio crackled to life, filling the bridge with static and something else. Something that might have been breathing, or wind, or the universe's idea of a cruel joke. Then came the voice, guttural, choking, speaking in Krellian battle cant. "She is not what the contract said. She is, oh gods of the void. She is still smiling, even now. Even as we, target confirmed as human female, registry Delacroix, Mira. Age 28 standard years. I cannot. The others are already. Transmission ends. Do not follow. Do not follow." The recording cut out with a wet sound that made my secondary stomachs clench. "Cheerful," muttered my weapons officer, a four-armed Ganthrine called Vec. "Absolutely delightful bedtime material, Captain." "The Krell do not scare easily," I said, keeping my voice level even though my own nerves were starting to fray. "They are born hunters, apex predators from a death world with gravity 3 times standard. They hunt for sport, for honor, for the highest bidder in the galaxy. And yet something on that planet made an entire crew of them abandon their ship and presumably die screaming," Vec replied, drumming his fingers against his console. "Which raises the obvious question, why are we here?" That was the question, was it not? The answer sat in my private quarters in the form of a data chip, delivered by a very expensive courier who had made it clear that refusal was not an option. The contract was simple. Verify what happened to the Krell team. Recover the target if possible. Eliminate the target if recovery proved unfeasible. Payment upon completion would be enough to buy a small moon. The target was one human woman. "Humans are not supposed to be dangerous," Prin said quietly, echoing the thought that had been bouncing around my skull since I accepted this cursed job. "They are Category 5 on the threat index. Their homeworld is pleasant. Mild weather, reasonable gravity. They have no natural weapons, no armored hides, no venom, no psionic abilities. They are soft." "The Krell thought the same thing," I said. "That is why they sent a hunter team instead of an extermination squad." "What did this Mira Delacroix do to warrant a Krell contract?" Vec asked. I had read the file multiple times. Even now it seemed absurd. "She stole something. A data core containing financial records from the Proxian Syndicate. Apparently, it documented every bribe, every assassination, every illegal transaction they have conducted over the past century. She then copied the data to every major news network in 16 systems before they could stop her." Vec let out a low whistle. "Bold. Stupid. But bold. The Syndicate wants her dead. They want it done quietly. They hired the Krell because the Krell always complete their contracts." I gestured at the still blinking beacon. "Except this time. So we go down there and finish what they started?" Vec did not sound enthusiastic about the prospect. We go down there and we figure out what went wrong. Then we make a decision based on actual intelligence, rather than ghost stories and scary noises on a recording. Prin's stalks drooped. Permission to speak freely, Captain. Denied. But speak anyway. This feels like a mistake. The kind that gets entire crews killed and turned into cautionary tales told in port bars across the galaxy. Your objection is noted and ignored. Prep the dropship. Vec, you are with me. Bring the heavy pulse rifles and the shield generators. Prin, you have command while we are gone. If we are not back in 6 hours, take the ship and jump to the nearest Concord station. Sell whatever you can, pay off the crew, and find honest work. And the contract? Prin asked. Will die with me. I am not important enough for anyone to chase my crew across space over a failed job. That was probably a lie, but it made everyone feel better. Terminus 4 was exactly as advertised in the navigation charts. A backwater rock on the edge of charted space with one small colony settlement, minimal infrastructure, and absolutely nothing of strategic or economic value. The perfect place to hide if you were smart and desperate in equal measure. The drop ship cut through the atmosphere with minimal turbulence, and I watched through the viewport as the landscape scrolled past below. Forests, mountains, a few scattered lakes reflecting the light of the system's orange dwarf star. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. I hated it immediately. Picking up the Krell ship's landing signature, Vec said, studying his tactical display. About 40 kilometers northwest of the main settlement. Middle of nowhere. Heavy forest coverage. Any life signs? Negative. Not from the ship, anyway. But there is something weird about the readings from the forest itself. Define weird. Thermal blooms, lots of them. Small signature, moving fast, scattered over a wide area. Could be local wildlife. Could be something else. Could be bodies, I said quietly. Vec did not argue. We set down 300 meters from the Krell vessel, close enough to reach quickly, but far enough to avoid any potential ambush points near the obvious target. The ship sat in a clearing that looked like it had been made by the landing itself. Trees scorched and flattened in a perfect circle around the craft. The boarding ramp was down. That is not standard procedure, Vec observed, training his rifle on the opening. No, it is not. We approached slowly, shields up, weapons hot. The forest around us was silent except for the wind moving through the branches. No birds, no insects, nothing. The silence felt wrong. Inside the ship, everything was intact. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no bodies. The control systems were still active, running on auxiliary power, and the environmental systems were functioning normally. It was as if the crew had simply stood up and walked away. Captain, Vec called from the armory section. You need to see this. I found him standing in front of an open weapons locker. It was empty. They took everything, Vec said. Every rifle, every blade, every piece of combat gear. The Krell came down here ready for war. And now they are gone, and so are their weapons. Something scared them enough to arm themselves to the teeth and then leave their ship behind. Krell do not abandon their vessels unless they have no other choice. I moved to the navigation console and pulled up the mission logs. The entries were brief, written in the clipped military style preferred by Krell hunters. Cycle 1. Target located in settlement. Visual confirmation obtained. Beginning tracking protocols. Cycle 2. Target departed settlement on foot. Heading northwest into forest region. Pursuit initiated. Cycle 3. Target maintaining steady pace. No indication of awareness. Confidence high. Cycle 4. Lost visual contact. Regained after 2 hours. Target behavior unusual. appears to be leading us. Cycle 5. Vrek is missing. Last seen on point position, no distress call, no body, just gone. Cycle 6. Another team member missing. Thessa this time. Found her helmet half a kilometer from last known position. Helmet interior covered in claw marks. From the inside. Cycle 7. It is hunting us now. We are the prey. How did this happen? She is human. She is one small human female. We are Krell. This is wrong. This is all wrong. The logs ended there. Captain, Vex said softly, I think we should leave. I wanted to agree. Every instinct I possessed was screaming at me to get back on the dropship and burn atmosphere until we reached orbit. But I had not survived this long in a dangerous galaxy by running at the first sign of trouble. We need more information. The contract is for verification and termination. We cannot verify anything until we know what happened. The logs tell us what happened. The Krell got killed. The logs tell us they thought they were being hunted. That is not the same thing as confirmation. Before Vec could argue further, a sound drifted through the open boarding ramp. Faint, almost musical. Someone was whistling. The tune was unfamiliar but pleasant, the kind of melody you might hear in a civilian district market. Cheerful, carefree, absolutely wrong for this situation. "Contact!" Vec hissed, bringing his rifle up. I moved to the ramp and looked out into the forest. At first, I saw nothing, just trees and shadows and the fading light of late afternoon. Then movement caught my eye, and I realized someone was walking toward us along the trail the Krell had carved through the underbrush. A human, female, young. She was covered in dirt and what might have been blood, wearing clothes that had clearly seen better days. Her hair was tied back in a simple tail, and she carried nothing except a small pack slung over one shoulder. She was still whistling that strange tune, walking with an easy stride like she was out for a casual hike, rather than approaching a heavily armed alien dropship in the middle of hostile territory. "Target acquired," Vec said quietly. "Mira Delacroix. Positive identification match." I watched her through my rifle scope. She did not look dangerous. She looked tired and dirty, and very, very human. She stopped whistling. She stopped walking. She looked directly at me, even though I was concealed behind the ship's hull plating, and she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Hello up there," she called out in perfect Galactic common, with just a trace of an accent. "I have been waiting for you. Took you long enough to show up. I was starting to think nobody else was going to take the contract." I did not respond. "The Krell were fun," she continued, still smiling. "Strong, fast, good instincts, but predictable once you understood how they thought. They hunted like pack predators, always trying to flank, always trying to isolate prey. Very effective against most targets." "Where are they?" I called back. "Dead, obviously. Did you really think they were just hiding in the woods waiting for rescue?" "What did you do to them?" Her smile widened. "I taught them an important lesson about humanity. Would you like to learn the same lesson? Or would you prefer to get back in your ship, fly away, and tell whoever hired you that Mira Delacroix is not worth the trouble? We have a contract." "So did they. Look how that worked out." Vec shifted beside me. "Captain, we could take the shot right now. Clear line of sight. She is standing in the open like she wants to die. She is standing in the open because she is not afraid," I said quietly. "That should concern you. We have shields. We have armor. We have weapons rated to punch through reinforced bunkers. She has nothing. That was the problem, was it not? She had nothing, and she was smiling. "Tell me something," I called out to her. How does one unarmed human kill a team of Krell hunters? Very carefully, she said, and with a lot of patience. Also, who said I was unarmed? She shrugged the pack off her shoulder and let it fall to the ground. Then she reached into it and pulled something out. It was a Krell combat knife, one of the heavy ones they used for close quarters work. The blade was stained dark. "Souvenir," she said cheerfully. "I have 11 more just like it. Turns out Krell bleed the same color as everyone else. Who knew?" "Impossible," Vec muttered. "Krell have reinforced skeletal systems, redundant organs, combat stimulants in their bloodstream at all times. One human cannot—" "Cannot what?" Mira interrupted. "Cannot outthink them? Cannot outlast them? Cannot turn their own hunting instincts against them until they are so paranoid and exhausted that they make mistakes?" She took a step forward. "Humans are not strong like Krell. We are not armored like Draxon. We are not fast like Velkari. But we are endurance predators. We do not give up. We do not stop. And when you push us into a corner and make us choose between dying quietly or taking you with us, another step, we always choose violence." I felt my grip tighten on my rifle. "Stay where you are." She stopped. The smile never left her face. "You have a choice to make, Captain. You can try to kill me. Maybe you will succeed. Maybe you will not. Either way, I promise you it will cost more than you are getting paid. Or you can walk away. Tell your employer that Mira Delacroix is dead. Show them some DNA samples. I have plenty of Krell genetic material lying around that you can pass off as mine. Collect your money. Live to see tomorrow. Why should I believe you would let us leave? Because I am not a monster. I am just someone who is very, very tired of being hunted. The Krell came for me. I dealt with them. You came for me. I would prefer not to deal with you the same way, but I will if you force my hand." Silence stretched between us. Behind me, I could hear Vec breathing heavily, his fingers twitching near his weapon's trigger. "How many more are coming?" I asked. "That depends on how many idiots keep accepting contracts on my head. The Syndicate has deep pockets. They can afford to keep sending hunters until one of them gets lucky." "You cannot run forever. Watch me." She picked up her pack, slung it over her shoulder, and turned to walk away. Just like that, as if we were not standing there with enough firepower to level a city block. As if she did not have a care in the galaxy. "Captain?" Vec said urgently. "Orders?" I watched her retreating back, watched the way she moved with confidence and purpose, watched the way the shadows seemed to welcome her as she stepped back into the forest, and I made a decision that would probably haunt me for the rest of my life. "We leave. Now." "But the contract. The contract can rot in the void for all I care. I did not survive 15 years in this business by fighting battles I could not win. She is one human. She is one human who killed an entire Krell hunter team with nothing but a knife and spite. I am not interested in testing whether she can do the same to us." We returned to the dropship in silence. As we lifted off, I took one last look at the forest below. For just a moment, I thought I saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees, looking up at us, still smiling. The jump back to civilized space took 3 days, and I spent every hour of it trying to figure out how to explain our failure without ending up on the wrong end of a Syndicate termination order. Prin kept giving me worried looks from his station, his sensory stalks drooping lower with each passing cycle. Vec had gone silent after we left Terminus 4, spending most of his time in the armory checking and rechecking weapons we had not even fired. The rest of the crew sensed something had gone wrong but knew better than to ask questions. Smart people, my crew. We docked at Helios Station, a massive spinning wheel of commerce and corruption hanging in neutral space, where the laws were suggestions and violence was currency. The perfect place to meet with representatives of organizations that technically did not exist. The message waiting for me in my private terminal was brief. Docking Bay 72. 1 hour. Come alone. I did not come alone, because I was not suicidal. Vec followed at a discreet distance, armed and ready to cause mayhem if things went sideways. Not that it would matter much if the syndicate decided I needed to die, but it made me feel better. Bay 72 was in the lower commercial district, surrounded by shipping containers and automated cargo loaders. A poor choice for an ambush, but an excellent choice for a quiet conversation away from surveillance cameras and nosy station security. The syndicate representative was waiting near a stack of crates, marked with fake agricultural shipping labels. She was Lorvaxian, which meant she looked vaguely reptilian, with iridescent scales that shifted colors in the station's harsh lighting. Expensive suit. Expensive cybernetic eye implants. Expensive attitude. Captain Torvin, she said without preamble, you returned without the target. The situation was more complicated than advertised. Complicated. She tasted the word like it was poison. The Krell said the same thing in their final transmission. Then they died. Yet here you stand, alive and unharmed. Curious. The target demonstrated capabilities beyond the initial intelligence assessment. Engaging her under those circumstances would have resulted in unnecessary casualties. So you ran away. I made a tactical decision based on available information. That is why you hire professionals instead of sending suicide squads. Her scales rippled with what might have been amusement or irritation. Hard to tell with Lorvaxians. The contract specified termination with extreme prejudice. You agreed to those terms. You accepted payment. I accepted a partial advance. The balance was contingent on completion. Since I did not complete the job, I owe you nothing except an honest assessment of the situation. Which is, I had prepared for this moment, rehearsed it in my quarters during the long jump home. The truth was not an option, but a carefully constructed lie, wrapped around just enough reality to be believable, might work. Your target is not alone on Terminus 4. She has established some kind of defensive perimeter in the forest region. Automated systems, traps, possibly stolen military hardware. The Krell walked into it blind and got slaughtered. We detected the anomalies before committing and withdrew to reassess. The Lorvaxians' artificial eyes clicked and whirred as they focused on me. Sensors detected no such installations, which suggests stealth technology, probably off-market Vrin design, very illegal, very expensive. Your target is more resourced than you thought. A long pause, calculations happening behind those mechanical eyes. You are lying. My heart's skipped approximately 3 beats. Excuse me. You are lying to me, Captain. Not about everything, but about something important. I can see it in your posture. Hear it in the way you are choosing your words. You encountered something on that planet that frightened you. Something you do not want to talk about. I forced myself to stay calm. The target has unknown capabilities. That frightens any sensible person. Then you will return to Terminus 4 with proper support. We will provide troops, equipment, orbital bombardment capability if necessary. Mira Delacroix dies. Those are your new orders. I respectfully decline. The temperature in the bay seemed to drop several degrees. That was not a request, Captain. And that was not a suggestion. I am done with this contract. Find someone else." She moved fast for someone in an expensive suit. One moment she was standing 3 meters away. The next, she was in my face with a plasma burner pressed against my chest. "You do not walk away from syndicate contracts, you insignificant void worm. You took our money. You owe us results. If you cannot provide results, you provide corpse. Your choice." Before I could respond, there was a soft click behind her, the distinctive sound of a safety disengaging on a military-grade pulse rifle. "Step back from my captain," Vec said quietly, "or I paint this bay with your internal organs." The Lorvaxian glanced over her shoulder, saw the weapon, and smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You think you can shoot me before my people shoot you? Look around, Captain. You are surrounded." She was right. Figures emerged from behind cargo containers and support pillars. At least a dozen armed personnel, all with weapons trained on us. Professional killers wearing the blank expressions of people who had done this many times before. We were dead. Simple mathematics. Then someone started whistling. That same tune from the forest. Cheerful and completely out of place. Everyone froze. Mira Delacroix walked into the docking bay like she owned it, hands in her pockets, that infuriating smile on her face. She had cleaned up since I last saw her. Fresh clothes, hair washed. She looked like an ordinary young woman out for a casual stroll, except for her eyes. Those eyes belonged to something that had looked at death and decided it was boring. "Hello, everyone," she said brightly. "Am I interrupting something important? Because it looks like a standard intimidation scenario, and those are always so tedious." The Lorvaxian recovered first. "Kill her. Kill them all. Now." Weapons came up. Triggers were squeezed. Nothing happened. Mira stopped whistling and tilted her head. "Oh, did you actually try to fire? That is adorable." See, the thing about modern weapons is they all have electronic firing mechanisms, computer chips, wireless protocols, very convenient, very efficient. Also very easy to hack if you know what you are doing. She pulled a small device from her pocket. It looked like a modified datapad, covered in improvised circuitry and blinking lights. "I have been upgrading my skills since the Syndicate decided I was worth killing. Turns out there are some really interesting military-grade hacking tools available on the black market if you know where to look and do not mind threatening arms dealers with creative violence." One of the hired killers dropped his weapon and pulled a backup pistol. Chemical propellant. No electronics. Old school. He got one shot off before Mira moved. I barely saw it happen. One moment she was standing 5 meters away. The next, she was behind him with her arm around his throat. There was a wet crunch, and he dropped. The others tried to rush her. Tried being the operative word. What followed was not a fight. It was a demonstration. Mira moved like water, flowing between attacks, using the attacker's own momentum against them. A strike to a knee joint, an elbow to a throat. A twist and throw that sent a Ganthrene twice her size crashing into a cargo container hard enough to leave a dent. 14 seconds. That was how long it took her to disable 12 trained killers. The Lorvaxian stared at the carnage, her scales flashing colors I had never seen before. "What are you?" Mira brushed imaginary dust off her jacket. "I am someone who got tired of running, so I decided to change the dynamic. You want me dead? Fine. But it is going to cost you everything you have, and you still probably will not succeed. The Syndicate will never stop hunting you. Then I guess I will never stop killing whoever they send. Economics, really. At some point, the cost of continuing exceeds the benefit of success. When that happens, smart people cut their losses and move on. She walked over to where I was still standing, frozen in shock. You tried to warn me off instead of attacking. I appreciate that. Professional courtesy between people who understand how the game works. You followed us, I said stupidly. Obviously. You think I was going to let potential threats just wander off? I hitched a ride in your cargo bay. Nice ship, by the way. Could use better security protocols. Vec made a strangled sound that might have been laughter or horror. Mira turned to the Lorvaxian. Here is what happens next. You go back to your bosses and tell them Mira Delacroix is off the board. Not dead. Just too expensive to kill. If they insist on continuing this stupidity, I will start working my way up the organizational chart until I reach whoever makes the real decisions. Then we will have a very direct conversation about cost-benefit analysis. They will never accept that. Then they will die. All of them. One by one. In creative ways that serve as object lessons to anyone else who thinks hiring assassins is a solution to their problems. She paused. Or they could write off the loss, bury the data I leaked, and move on with their lives. Their choice. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush planets. Finally, the Lorvaxian straightened her suit and stepped over the unconscious bodies of her hired muscle. I will relay your message. You do that, and tell them something else. Tell them that humans are not the soft, harmless species everyone thinks we are. We just choose not to show our teeth unless provoked. But when we do, she smiled that terrible smile. We bite really, really hard. The Lorvaxian left without another word. Mira watched her go, then turned to me. You should probably leave this station. Soon. Before someone decides to try their luck again. What about you? I have a few more errands to run, people to see, threats to neutralize, the usual. She started walking toward the bay exit, then paused. For what it is worth, Captain. You made the right choice back on Terminus 4. Not everyone would have. Why did you spare us? She looked back over her shoulder. Because you gave me a choice. The Krell did not. They came hunting. You came looking for answers. Different motivations produce different outcomes. Will the Syndicate actually back off? Probably not immediately. But after a few more object lessons, they will realize I am too expensive to kill and too dangerous to ignore. Then we will reach an understanding. That is how these things work. And if they do not? Her smile turned cold. Then the galaxy learns what happens when you push a human too far. Should be educational. She left the bay whistling that same cheerful tune. Vec lowered his rifle and let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for a year. Captain, what just happened? We survived an encounter with the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. The Syndicate? No. A human who decided she was done being prey. We returned to the ship and departed Helios Station within the hour. As we cleared the station's gravity well and prepared for jump, Prin approached me on the bridge. Captain, there is a data packet in our communications buffer. It arrived while we were on the station. No sender identification. Encrypted with military-grade protocols. Can you decrypt it? Already did. It is a bank transfer. Significant amount. Origin point is untraceable. How significant? Enough to pay off the ship and retire comfortably for several years. I stared at the screen showing our account balance. A note was attached to the transfer for professional courtesy. Stay smart. Stay alive. Captain, Beck said quietly, did she just pay us? For not killing her? Apparently. That is the strangest contract completion I have ever heard of. I thought about Mira Delacroix walking through that docking bay like death incarnate. Thought about the Krell team that made the mistake of underestimating her. Thought about the lesson she had taught everyone about what humans were capable of when pushed. "Make a note in the ship's logs," I said. "Effective immediately. We do not accept contracts on human targets. Ever." "Understood, Captain." As we jumped to hyperspace, I found myself wondering how long it would take before the rest of the galaxy learned the same lesson. Humans looked soft, acted friendly, seemed harmless. But underneath that pleasant exterior was something ancient and patient and absolutely terrifying. Persistence hunters, endurance predators, a species that had climbed to the top of their food chain not through strength or speed, but through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. The Krell had learned that lesson too late. We had learned it just in time. Somewhere on the edge of civilized space, Mira Delacroix was still out there, still smiling, still teaching the galaxy that humans were not prey. They were the thing prey should be afraid of. And the empty Krell beacon kept broadcasting its warning to anyone stupid enough to ignore it. Do not follow. Do not follow. Do not follow. Some lessons, it seemed, had to be learned the hard way.